Okay, hello everyone, welcome back once again. This is part 6 of 7 of our circuitry sessions. So today we're going to cover what is called the centering circuit, and it is the minor circuit of individuality and the knowing circuit. Sort of like when we covered the tribal energy and we had the major ego circuit, which was all about business and community and money and hierarchy. And then there was the minor circuit component, which had a lot to do with the nurturing of our young and the caring for our young and reproduction. Similar to that concept, where you have the major and minor, there's also a major and minor circuit associated with the knowing circuitry. And today what we're going to look at is called the centering circuit. The centering circuit is kind of interesting because it shares a component channel, or at least component gates, with integration, which, as we know from our exploration last week, integration is a very self-absorbed, almost selfish energy that has the capacity to direct one's power and intuition in the now moment for survival of that particular individual, and that particular integration channel is very different from tribal energy because it's not concerned with the support of others. It's concerned with the self-preservation of the individual that carries the energy. And it's also very different from the collective circuitry, whether it be the collective logic or the collective abstract, because it's not about sharing. It's not necessarily interested in engaging in new experiences. It's not necessarily capable of perfecting things or working out the logic or the details of a situation. It's actually, its primary concern is surviving and making it to tomorrow, because the 57th gate is the fear of tomorrow. So like you can think of it like integration. Its primary awareness process is totally oriented with, let's just get through today so that we can make it to tomorrow and actually survive the new day that comes. So again, pulling away a little bit now from the integration channel itself and moving into the individual knowing circuit, we're going to kind of skip ahead into the centering circuit. And the centering circuit, like I've mentioned already, is a minor circuit group, a part of the individual circuit group. And you can think of it as the power to be centered and to follow one's unique path with a competitive spirit. Okay. It is similar to integration, a self-absorbed energy, but it's also an energy that can actually be of value and be empowering to others in the way in which it can shape and shift and inspire other people to behave. Okay. And empower other people to be competitive, to have like a courageous spirit, to be self-centered in one's nature, and to have the courage to face challenges and the power to respond to life's difficulties while remaining centered and remaining confident in one's own personal abilities. So it's kind of an evolution from integration in that there's a component of it that is self-absorbed, but it's not entirely selfish. Okay, it's a power to behave and an individual ego capacity to be competitive and to be connected with one's own unique spirit, as you'll see with the 25th gate, which is a part of the channel of initiation. So just to review again, the integration channel from last week, which again, as we looked at before, is an amalgamation of 4 separate channels into one. Got the 3457, the 5710, the 1020, and then the 2034. So you got the archetype of behavioral perfected form, sign of commitment to higher principles, with a charismatic, busy, doing kind of energy, and it's all wrapped up into one channel. And what we covered and what we understood from our exploration is that the integration channel is really about self-sufficiency and having a deep intuitive personal power that's guided by our acoustic awareness. And the acoustic awareness, again, is located here in the 57th gate from the spleen. So it's a very existential acoustic, knowing what to do with one's power in order to survive or not. okay? And it acts as a backbone for the individual defense, meaning individual self-preservation. Okay, so it's the power to survive on one's own, separate from the support of the tribe or the sharing constructs that are so much a part of the collective circuitry that we see. It's very selfish. Okay, it's focused solely on the individual, like I mentioned before. Tribal energy is all about support, so it's all about give and take. Collective abstract sensing circuitry and collective logic understanding circuitry is all about sharing. So the ideas are always flowing, the logic is always being shared, things are always being challenged and critiqued, experiences are being longed for, judged, and there's either, a sense of fulfillment in the fulfillment of one's desires and expectations, or a disappointment crash wave. But it's all shared, and it's all about engaging in shared experiences with other people, okay? So integration and even individuality, as we move into the deeper themes of the knowing circuit, is about the individual person. It's not about the tribe and what the tribe has always done according to tradition, and it's not about sharing, as is so prevalent in the collective circuitry, okay? It's not about being loyal to one's family or engaging in new shared experiences for the sake of engaging in new shared experiences, or having any concern for future-focused planning. The integration channel's sole purpose is self-empowerment and differentiation in the now moment, meaning doing what feels correct for you to do in the now moment, being busy for yourself, doing things that bring you a sense of satisfaction, success, peace, surprise. Again, because reflectors, of course, can have components of integration. And again, it runs from the sacral into the spleen, up to the G, eventually making its way to the throat. It can also go directly to the throat in the channel 3420. Okay, so that charismatic, busy, busy, busy in the now kind of energy. And like I said, it's focused on present orientation, so in the now doing. It's not necessarily looking to conform to some type of societal norm, and it can be very indifferent to perfectionism, and actually express as a very self-reliant decision-making kind of style, especially if you're a generator and you have an open or undefined solar plexus and your inner authority is sacral, and you have integration channels coming out from the sacral. Even if you have a blend of different ones. So if you have like the 2750 and the 3457, you may even have the 515, okay? Yes, there'll be like a sharing component and a supporting component, but when you look at that inner authority process according to the individual's unique nature, you would want to consider the components of integration first and most primary, okay? So to respect the nature of that individual. Okay, so the individual feeling satisfied in their doing and supportive shared energy with others. It's nothing more frustrating for an individual than to be caught up in a expectation support program, or support arrangement where you're doing things for other people all the time and it doesn't feel necessarily satisfying to you. Okay, so tuning into your own inner authority and determining how you expend your energy according to what's correct for you as an individual is definitely primary and something to consider if you have a lot of integration in your design. Okay. And again, just as a segue, a reminder here with integration, it's the only channel/circuit that you're going to see with the super keynote of self-empowerment. Okay, so as we move into the knowing circuit, the super keynote is going to shift to simply empowerment. All right, so it's no longer emphasizing the individual self and what's correct for that individual person. As we move into the centering circuit and eventually into the knowing circuit next week, you'll see that the keynote is really about empowerment. So it's feeling empowered, yes, of course, as an individual, but it's also about how the energy can be expressed to empower other individuals. Okay, and you'll see today with some of the examples that I use how that can show up for the centering circuit. And again, before we move along, are there any questions with regards to the integration channel? Questions, comments, feedback, anything you guys have noticed or care to share with the group?
Just a question from what you said just now with the self-empowerment thing. Like, what if you, so for example, I have the hanging 34 and I have someone who has the 10. So would that like mean, because I always feel very empowered when I speak to that person and I feel they have the same when they're with me. Is that like
Yeah,
also how that could work?
totally. So they have the 10, you have the 34.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they would have together you would have electromagnetically the channel of exploration, a design of following one's own
Mhm.
convictions. And so yes, the super keynote is empowerment, where you each are being empowered by the interaction. You're bringing
Right.
the sacral availability to do and to do things that bring you a sense of satisfaction, and they bring a quality of behavior that when connected to that sacral energy, one, it activates your sacral, right? it
Yeah.
would it would it
Yeah.
would bring that life force into activation, so you would feel that chemistry within your nature. Definitely
Yes.
a chemical click. And for them, their behavior would feel acknowledged and empowered, right? So
Right. Right.
maybe a good exercise would be to look
Mm.
at maybe a good exercise would be to look at the line of the 10th gate that they have, and also where it is
Mhm.
in their design.
Right.
Is it part of their cross? Is it part of their
Yeah.
inner
It is.
planets? It's part of their incarnation cross. Are they a vessel of
Yeah.
love? I know that.
Yes.
Yes. So
Yeah.
the vessel cross is a really fascinating cross because it embodies.
Mm.
It's entirely G center oriented. Um,
Yeah.
and as you'll see when we get to the gates and channels slide, the 10th gate is the love of oneself, and it's really the love
Mm.
of one's individual behavior, So,
Right.
yeah, look at the line, look at where it is, even in the context of their cross on earth, conscious, unconscious, and you can start to
Yeah.
piece together some of the details. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Anyone else? I think we're good. Okay, so let's move along here. As you can see, like with the defense circuit and the tribal circuitry, the minor circuit here only has two channels. The minor circuit, being centering circuit in this case, only has two channels associated with it. So it's a lot less complex than individual knowing, which actually crosses through most of all 8 of the 9 centers, um, or the tribal ego circuitry, or any of the collective channels, right? So it's 4 gates, 2 channels, runs from the sacral through the G down into the ego. You can also read it from the ego into the G, across down into the sacral. It all depends on how it shows up in someone's design. Yeah, so the centering circuit is the minor circuit of the individual circuit group. Although it involves the 34th gate and the 10th gate, so between the sacral and the G, just like integration, it is not technically part of that channel construct, which when analyzing charts is something to keep in mind. Okay, so if you see somebody with just the 3410 in their design, it would be inappropriate to sort of focus on self-empowerment and how selfish and self-absorbed they are, because those rules don't apply. It's a different dynamic. Here, just like in all of the other knowing circuitry, the keynote is empowerment. So it's empowerment of the self, and it can actually, so this is one of the situations where the 34 actually can have an effect that is empowering on other people, and not necessarily just be totally self-absorbed and how that person uses their energy. Okay, doing things, busy in the now moment for themselves. Now we have an expression of energy that can actually be quite useful and empowering in how it affects other people. And what it actually shows up as is the altering and inspiring of behavioral strategies. Okay, so changing another person's behavior or inspiring them to behave differently. Okay, that's the kind of impact the 3410 can have. So the centering circuit represents the mutative capacity of the individual. And I just want to clarify, whenever we use the word mutative, which you're going to hear a lot in the individual circuit group, or if ever you hear Ra talk about mutation or mutative, what mutation actually is something that happens that's different, that's new. Individuality brings the new. Individuality has this amazing capacity within it to actually create things from scratch, not based upon how things have been done in the past, not based upon some logical projected plan into the future, and not based upon some traditional structure or expectation. It's something completely new. It's mutative. It's different. Okay? So the centering circuit represents this mutative capacity of the individual to remain self-centered and empowered in the face of unexpected shock and challenge, meaning it's the kind of energy that can deal with unexpected, unpredictable situations and still make it out alive, and still maintain their competitive innocence and spirit and power to behave correctly for themselves. It provides the individual with the willpower to be competitive, 5125, a deep need to be first when facing off against others and the forces, and the power to behave uniquely as an individual, following one's own convictions and staying true to themselves no matter what. Unlike the integration channel, which is entirely selfish, the centering circuit has a way of inspiring others to change their behavior for the better, such as a coach helping to transform a client's unhealthy behavioral tendencies by empowering them to behave in a way that enhances their well-being. And I'll actually use an example with my own sister. So my sister works at a drug rehabilitation facility. So she's like a mentor and a facility coordinator, and she has the 3410. Okay. So, and she shares a lot. Her experiences, how she's able to sort of empower her clients, basically to help them shift negative behavioral tendencies, like being their addictions, right? So addictions to drugs, alcohol. And she's shared many times about how she has this capacity when she's around other people to help shift their behavioral tendencies for the better. It's quite remarkable. And now, again, looking at the mechanics, you'll see that it's not something that is actually spoken necessarily. Okay, it's not a concept, it's not an emotion, and it's not necessarily based in fear, because this has no connection with the G. It's about like an availability and a response and a warmth and a power directly connected to one's sense of self and self-love. Okay, so it can come across as a very empowered, loving energy. Of course, it can show up as tough love, right? Sometimes people need tough love in order to shift negative behavioral tendencies. But of course, that's a way it can express. So self-love, independence, self-reliance, and a healthy spirit for competition are all themes which, when embodied by those that carry this energy, can have a transformative effect on others, initiating the other into their own journey of self-exploration and empowerment. Now, as you can see, and this is an interesting thing because it's kind of like throwing a wrench into the works. I'm starting to use this word competitive, right, and willpower. And so far in our exploration of individuality, the keynote of competitiveness or competition and willpower has never yet been used, right? So integration is not at all about being competitive, and neither is the first half of the circuit group, right? It's having the power for the correct behavior. And now all of a sudden we have this word competitive show up. And it's really interesting, as you can see, how this minor circuit has a unique connection with the heart center. Okay. The 5125, which is the channel that runs between the ego and the G, or the G and the ego, is the only channel in the heart center that is not tribal. Okay. It is in fact individual. It's the one place within the heart where the individual has representation. Okay. And you kind of think of it as like the willful, courageous, warrior-like athlete individual person that's a member of a tribal sports team that everybody's rooting for in order to score the goal and to be first in the competition. Okay, so of course, someone that carries that energy, as you can see, the keynote being a design of needing to be first, there can be this competitive aspect and this courageous, competitive need to be first and to prove oneself. I know I've said before, like individuals are not necessarily concerned with proving oneself or having others prove themselves, but this is in fact one of the places in design where you will see the sort of fierce competitive spirit of an individual appear for the first time, and it's really the only place where you'll see that. Okay, you'll see once we get to the knowing circuit, which are the channels that run through the middle of the body graph. It's not about being competitive or being the best or needing to be first. It's about being unique. It's having a unique direction, unique creative expression, unique insights, unique knowing. Okay. But this is the one place in all of individuality where you'll see a competitive tendency and the need for that individual to be first in a competition, which is very clearly highlighted with the real life example I'll use later in today's talk. So here you will find the energy for the individual to be competitive for their own need to be first in comparison to others, and not necessarily only to serve the team, the family, or the community, rather to serve themselves. Again, like I mentioned, an athlete with this kind of energy, yes, they're a part of a team, and yes, that team may be rooting for them to win, but that individual has this ego capacity to do it for themselves. They want to win. They want to be on the top step of the podium. It's not even necessarily that they want to win on behalf of their team so their team can win the championship. No, it's so that they can get all of the reward and the recognition. Of course, recognition is a major component keynote for this channel because it's a projected channel. It's a projected channel because it's, yes, motorized from the ego to the G, but it's not generative and it doesn't make its way to the throat. So it's simply something that needs to be recognized, right? You'll see people with this kind of energy are often seeking recognition for their competitive spirit, but if maybe it's the only channel that they have and they're a projector, they may be bitter in their attempts to initiate being first rather than being invited into a competition where they can flex their will and flex their capacities. Okay, just as one example. So yeah, like a solo athlete who approaches a contest with a fierce warrior-like spirit and unwavering ego to come out on top. Now, of course, you don't have to think of every single person that you see with the 2551 as being this like super competitive, egotistical, warrior-like maniac by any stretch of the imagination. However, I have seen it quite a lot where I mentioned the nature of this energy to somebody if they have it in their design, and it's very quickly affirmed that yes, that's true. Okay, and also again the fact that it's not integration, self-empowerment, but rather empowerment. It's the kind of energy where if you have someone with the 2551 show up to a group, that entire group becomes empowered to be more competitive. You see, it has like this, it rubs off on other people, where the people this competitive individual may be facing off against actually may amplify, especially if the heart center is undefined, it may amplify that competitive spirit and try to be even more competitive than the person that actually carries the channel within their design. Yeah, so this channel also, the 2551, can express a deeply spiritual quality. Like, for example, if you're familiar with Osho, or Bhagwan Rajneesh, he had the channel of initiation. He was a very famous Indian guru, spiritual teacher, and his whole thing was like initiating his sannyasins into his following or his belief structure. I won't use him as an example today, so I'm not going to provide his bio, but feel free to look him up and have a look at his design and maybe even do a little research on, Osho initiation. Okay. I'm sure you'll find a lot of it on the internet. So it can have a very deeply spiritual quality, which originates from the 25th gate, where the shock of an initiation can empower someone to jump into the void, to be courageous, to put themselves first, and experience a connection to one's higher self in the process. Imagine a person standing at the edge of a high diving board for the first time, closing their eyes and taking a deep breath before leaping into the water below. This symbolizes the courage to embrace new experiences, to have the courage to jump into the unknown, leading to a profound connection with their inner strength. Because again, remember, the ego is a motor, it's a strength, okay? And you'll see how the G center here, which is not at all a motor, it's all about identity and direction, within the context of the centering circuit, is essentially flanked by two motors, okay? It's one of the ways in which the G center derives its energy, okay? How the G center itself, meaning someone's identity or sense of direction, in this case, it's behavioral, innocent behavioral tendencies or spiritual-like behavioral tendencies are empowered, okay, or are motorized, are energized. Again, that's where you get this competitive capacity from the heart center and its ability to be competitive and actually flex one's will. Of course, the heart center, it's work rest, right? It's not like the sacral where it can work every day, all day. The ego needs its rest. So it's like short-term competitive efforts. If you've got the whole thing, it's a whole different story, but still, considering the differences is important. So again, just in review, the centering circuit, okay, it runs from the sacral. So you have this availability and power into the G for the correct behavior and across through to the heart center through one's innocent capacity to deal with the shock and challenge of life's difficulties, okay, and to come out of difficult experiences as an initiated, self-centered, self-empowered individual that can then have a profound impact on other individuals, right? So again, this is like, for example, a situation where if you have someone with this energy, they may have gone through some type of difficulty or extreme challenge in their life. And as a result of having survived that difficulty and extreme challenge, they have within them sort of a permanent courage and a permanent sense of self-centered capacity. Like, yeah, I was able to do that. I came out on top. Like I went through that challenge, I dealt with that difficulty, and yet I was still able to make it out alive. And that can have a very empowering impact on other people, especially the uninitiated, right? So it's kind of like having an experienced guide as or an experienced mountain climber as your tour guide, okay? So the experienced mountain climber has done the trail 100 times. They know what to expect. They've been through the challenges, and now they're offering their availability and willful capacity to help guide you sort of on your expedition and initiate you into the journey, okay? You also find themes like shamanism in this channel, in this energy. So I guess it would be a good time to talk about the conditioning impact of this circuit group. Of course, as with all individuality, the primary conditioning impact here is being able to stay true to your individual response and what's correct for you, and not to be pulled or overly persuaded by tribal expectations or collective expectations, right? So people with this energy in their design, it's really important for them to become attuned to what they truly are available for as an individual, especially if they have a lot of openness outside of the context of the centering circuit. It's also where, again, if you don't have any of this energy in your design, let's say you don't have the 34, 10, 25, or 51, you may be conditioned by someone else's self-empowered behavior to be competitive, right? So it can have that effect where, here's Zidane, okay, very famous soccer player who's got the whole thing, 34-10, 25-51. Of course, he's going to be conditioning everybody who watches him, especially those who are around him, to be competitive, to have the correct behavior and power in the now moment, to be like a competitive force in the realm of football or realm of soccer. Okay. And I guess we'll get into him as an example now. And I'm using him as an example because he's one of the rare charts that I've ever seen where you actually have the full centering circuit. Okay. It's not very common where you see representation of the entire circuit group in one person's design. And I think he's an excellent example of one, as you'll see when we go over his bio, for how this energy can express. So Zinedine Zidane, born June 23rd, 1972 in Marseille, France, is a figure synonymous with self-empowerment, influential leadership, and an indomitable competitive spirit. It's interesting, actually, his design sun is the 25th gate. Okay. From his humble beginnings, Zidane's journey in football is a testament to his ability to overcome challenges and inspire those around him. His career began before he moved to Bordeaux, showcasing his exceptional talent early on. His major breakthrough came through his transfer to Juventus, where his skills flourished, leading him to becoming one of the most sought-after players in the world. Okay, so here's someone with the power to follow one's own convictions, okay, with a need to be first and be competitive when interacting with other people. And he's one of the most sought-after professional football players in the world. He's a coach now. He no longer plays professionally, but he coaches other people, which we'll see, as I mentioned before, is how that centering circuit can express as a way to empower other people. Okay. So his skills flourished, leading him to become one of the most sought-after players in the world. His time at Real Madrid further cemented his legacy, marked by iconic performances, including his stunning volley in the 2002 UEFA Championships League final. So again, here's a very competitive person with the depth and talent to be able to actually contribute and lead his team to victory. Okay, and it's all centered around this competitive spirit and behavioral power. And as you can see, he actually does have the full integration channel as well. Right, so the powerful intuition for the correct behavior in the now with a fiercely competitive spirit. Okay, doing, busy, highly athletic, obviously, one of the best football players around. Okay. Internationally, Zidane was the linchpin of the French national team. His pinnacle achievement was leading France to victory in the 1998 World Cup. Okay, leading his team to victory. Design of needing to be first. He was a 31, so leading his team to victory. You see how that comes together. Okay, a tournament where his leadership and talent were unmistakable. He replicated his influential performance in the 2000 European Championship, further demonstrating his ability to elevate on his team under pressure. Undefined root center. Okay, so there's his wisdom in life is how to handle the pressure of expectation and still maintain his self-centered competitive spirit and perform under pressure. Zidane's competitive nature was not without its flaws, however, as seen in the infamous headbutt incident in the 2006 World Cup final, which, you guys must remember that clip. This is the guy who did that headbutt against the other player on the field, and it kind of went viral. Many memes have been made as a result of that. And you can kind of think of that as like being fiercely competitive and very existential, really not really thinking about what he was about to do, just doing it, right? So you have that response, intuitive response in the now moment with a fiercely competitive ego results in these sort of questionable in the now moment decisions, such as headbutting another player. Okay. Yet, even this moment underscores his intensely passionate nature and the profound impact he had on the field. His actions, whether positive or controversial, had the power to alter the course of a game, no doubt. Okay. Post-retirement, Zidane transitioned into coaching, bringing the same level of excellence and motivational prowess to managing teams. His tenure at Real Madrid was marked by remarkable success, including 3 consecutive Champions Leagues, Elite Champions League titles, showcasing his ability to inspire and extract the best from his players. Okay, and he is actually a 10.6, the line of the role model. So like I mentioned before with the 3410, this energy can have an impact on other individuals to inspire them to behave as their best selves, right? To behave in a way that allows them to feel empowered and to extract maximum performance and competitiveness, in this case on the field. Okay, so if you think about it, it's kind of a narrative of self-empowerment, marked by his relentless pursuit of excellence and competitive nature, with the capacity to inspire and alter the behavior of others. Okay, so here's someone again who had a remarkable professional career, very sort of an adorned athlete, and fiercely competitive nature, who obviously matured and evolved into taking on a coaching position where, again, that energy no longer was entirely self-serving. He began to actually share his competitive spirit and capacity to inspire other people, to manage his team, to lead his team. Okay. And yeah, just an interesting example. And again, a rare example where you have the entire circuit, this entire minor circuit activated in someone's design. And again, I'll mention it's rare because the 25, the 51, or sorry, the 51, the 25, the 10 and the 34 are not what we call oppositions in the wheel. It's not like the 3420 or the 4037 or the 4323, where you have a lot of people who have this kind of energy in their design because it shows up if they have it in their incarnation cross or in their nodes. Okay, it requires some sort of abstract combination of planets in order to bring the channel definition, the channel into definition in someone's design, right? So it's less common. I also find it kind of interesting if you look. So when you're reading the mandala, you read it counterclockwise, and you start at the 41 and you move your way around the wheel. But it's interesting how, so the pathway is the 34, 10, 25, 51. And if you read that same sequence in the correct direction around the wheel, you have the 34, 10, 25, 51. Right? Kind of interesting how that flows in the same order that it shows up in the body graph. Of course, you can look at it in reverse order as well. There's no real strict hard rule there. You can always read it. The ego, identity, sacral availability. Again, general rule of thumb is that you read bottom up, top down in the chart. Okay. All right. So yeah, 3 centers involved: the sacral, which is the power to do for oneself. Okay, the 34th gate. The G center, which represents our behavioral of the identity of the individual, and the retaining of one's innocence. Okay, which is what is represented by the 25th gate. There's a love of self, which is the 10, and a universal love, the love of the inanimate, which is represented by the 25. The 25th gate can express a love of things, right? Where you have a love of your car, or a love of your bike, or a love of your computer, or a love of something that's not even alive necessarily, okay? And the 25th gate is, again, the love of one's personal, individual behavior, which is, again, why this energy can be so empowering to others and not just that person that carries it, because anybody who radiates self-love is going to have an effect on the people around them, right? To inspire them to also love themselves for the unique way in which they're designed to behave and interact with other individuals amongst the tribe and the collective. Okay. And the third, the heart and the ego. A shock and ego willpower to be competitive and courageous. Okay, that's what you get from the 25th gate. You can read up on the lines, the 51st gate. You can read up on the lines of the 51st gate, looking at the Ravi Ching, also the Neutrino Design app. You can actually pull up Zidane's chart, and you can look at his, for example, and see how that shows up in the context of his body graph, if you so wish. But so the courageous spirit to behave in a self-empowered manner. Okay. And the sacral brings the availability. The G brings a sense of behavioral role, loving role, innocent role. And then the heart brings this competitive aspect. And when you blend it all together, it's like an availability to be someone who's competitive, okay? Or a competitive spirit to behave in a certain way that can actually be quite available to face off with life's challenges, okay? And to have the stamina and the repeatability, the availability. So there's 4 gates, the 3410, 2551, and only 2 channels. Again, reminder that this is a minor circuit group. The major circuit group is the individual knowing circuit group, which we'll cover next week, and it's a lot more complex. Okay, this one only being 4 and 2. At the 3410, the channel of exploration, a design of following one's convictions, which can be understood as the power to act according to one's unique behavior. Right? So again, here we have uniqueness and behavior coming together to help an individual differentiate themselves from the traditions of the tribe, okay, the expectations of the collective, to be unique, to essentially be a role model, which is the case of Zidane, right? He's a 10.6. So someone who's a self-empowered role model with a fierce competitive spirit, there you go, okay? 2551, the channel of initiation, a design of needing to be first, can be understood in one way as a competitive and courageous spirit capable of jumping into the void and surviving the journey, okay? And once they've been through a challenging experience, of course, the memory of that is passed on in every interaction that they have with someone in the future, such as someone, again, like I said, going through a challenging situation, coming out alive and being able to initiate and inspire others to deal with similar challenges in the future because they themselves were the first one to do it. Okay, a design of needing to be first. Okay, yeah, and also note which centers are missing from the centering circuit. So the centering circuit is not necessarily about being under pressure and rushing to do things, okay? It's based on a guttural response and availability to do. It's not even necessarily guided by an awareness process. As you can see, the 3 awareness centers are disconnected from this particular centering circuit group. Of course, you can see in the context of someone's real design, they may have the 57. So here's someone with an intuitive power for the correct behavior and a competitive spirit in the now. Okay, and that can be how he shows up in the world. But when you look at it in isolation, it's really about a guttural response and a unique identity expression, exerting its will and its courage in the world. Okay. Yeah, again, someone who has just the centering circuit, it would be to orient them to the guttural response sounds associated with their sacral, especially if if they have an undefined or open solar plexus and the sacral is their inner authority process. It's like, am I really available for this or not? Okay. Yeah, and of course, no access to the throat. It's not even necessarily about manifesting, right? It's about doing things and being a certain way and being competitive and feeling satisfied for being recognized as someone who has a competitive spirit, right? Again, the recognition keynote coming from the fact that the 2551 is projected, and the satisfaction keynote coming from the fact that the 3410 is a generated channel, okay? Again, if you think about it in terms of type, you'll see generators and projectors with components of this minor circuit group. You also see manifestors with components of this circuit group, and of course reflectors with components of the circuit group. So all 4 types can have components of the group, but you would think you can see how it's really only generators who could have the whole thing. Okay, as an example with Zidane, he's obviously a generator with the entire centering circuit in his design. If he didn't have the 34, he would be a manifestor, okay? Because the ego willpower would have an outlet through the throat, so he would have a motorized throat through the context of the 51, 25, 10, 20, which actually was the case with Ra. Ra Uruhu. So Ra was a manifester with only projected channels. He didn't have any of the manifesting channels that run from the ego to the throat or the solar plexus to the throat. Okay. He had the 5125, and then the easiest way for that energy was the 1020. So again, Ra was another example, of course, with someone who had a component of the centering circuit, and he went through quite a shocking experience that he survived. Okay. And he was able to share the wisdom of that experience with us with through the 1020 outlets. All right. So he went through a shocking initiation with the voice, and then he subsequently shared his wisdom with us as a result, which was, for most people, a very empowering, self-centering kind of experience to come to terms with your own design, with your own nature, to accept your own nature as correct. Okay, so I think that's all I have to really share about the centering circuit. And I think actually what I shared with you guys today is the most amount of information that I've ever even really seen on the centering circuit. It's not really covered in very much detail in the materials, at least that I've had access to, which is most of the original texts and some of the more modern texts. So it was fun to kind of extract some of the deeper significance associated with that circuit group, that you can see its importance. And again, I think maybe the biggest thing is here is like a deeply individual energy that also has the ability to empower others, right, with real power and a real behavioral impact. And also where you see the only place you're going to see in a design a real competitive spirit in association with individuality and competitiveness. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Some high quality evolve only content. That's right. The minor circuits often are kind of overlooked as like, well, not important, but I think it's important to cover all of them and do them all justice as much as possible. So, yeah, as always, I'm open to looking at some charts if you guys wish to share or have a look and see how the centering circuit may show up in your own personal design.
Could we check my chart? I have this channel.
Wow, very unique. You have a lot of definition, all 9 centers defined with a single definition. Remarkable. So let's see. So you have the 3457. So there's your component of integration, right? But as you can see, your 34. So the power and the intuition is really, its outlet is through your talent. So maybe you have this powerful intuition for expressing a talent and a skill. Okay. Like a power to master, right? And the 2551 in the context of your design, let's see, is in the South Node, Mars, and Saturn. So this sort of competitive spirit, as we could call it, or design of needing to be first for you, primarily is unconscious, right? So if we isolate centering, individual, okay, so what do we have? We have the power to be self-centered and competitive in a way that's unique to you. Yeah, this is all happening at an unconscious level. So you don't even necessarily identify with being a competitive person or having a need to be first in your life, right?
Yeah, no, friends have told me about it. I didn't know until I asked, and they were like, no, every time you play with us, it turns like horribly competitive.
Okay, right. Okay. And I just want to go back here too. Yeah, yeah. Are you into a certain kind of sport, or is there any kind of sport or activity that you enjoy practicing and expressing? Something that you're good at or like to be competitive in?
Well, yes, but like nothing I do all the time. Just like I'm invited to different things, and sometimes I climb or I play stuff, or like I do many things, but like not one specific.
Uh-huh. I'm just looking here. So third line, first line, third line, the context of your environment. So you can bring to your environment a highly energized, sort of courageous, competitive quality with the discipline to maintain your innocence. So again, this is the thing. It's like, it's a very odd combination, the 2551, because on one hand, you have this like the ego warrior, and on the other side, you have the innocence of the self, right? So it can come across as like an innocent competitiveness or an innocent need to be first. Okay, so the power and the talent to have and to be first. Yeah, but again, you'll see these traits, these qualities and characteristics being expressed in the context of your environment at an early age. And you're 96, so you haven't crossed over into your north node yet, so this is still very much prevalent. I guess maybe another question would be, have you ever dealt with any major shock or unexpected shocking situation in your life where it was required of you to maintain your stability and sort of land on your feet?
Oh yes, all the time. It was very confusing growing up because I didn't understand why these things happened to me. And I used to go to different like psychologists that said like, oh, you are attracting it with your thoughts. And it's like, no, I'm thinking something else, and suddenly something happens and I am required to be there and required to be calm and help others. And it's something that has happened so many times. Like, and like shock happens, and then there's a possibility of like finding love after it happens, like supporting others and hugging others, and it's like, I don't know, I don't get why it happens, but I'm able to manage it. Very difficult.
And maybe the takeaway for today is for you to see that this is all happening at an unconscious level. It's not something you necessarily identify with, and it's something that's going to show up in your environment in an unexpected, highly energized way. And it's for you to have the discipline to maintain your innocence and your self-love, even when dealing with life's difficulties and challenges. And it's something within you that you can certainly have the power to handle, right?
Wow, yes. Yes.
Okay.
It happens so much.
Fascinating design. Again, very rare that I've seen someone that where you see all 9 centers and single definition. It's like you definitely came in with a real purpose to fulfill, hey? You know? Yeah, amazing. Have you had a reading? Have you had like a comprehensive analysis of your design with someone
Yes,
before? Okay.
I just had it. Yes, very helpful.
Okay, great. Excellent.
I'm still having a difficult time understanding open centers, like how they felt, but I'm trying my best.
Open centers, like, or
Mm.
channels centers.
No. I'm trying to understand like how others experience open centers, because
Aha.
it has been difficult for me to understand others. Very, very, very difficult. So that's why human design is, I love it. I love it. I love it.
I'm sure you've come across the keynote of amplification. So someone with open centers such as myself, right? So I would amplify your willpower when you're around. Right? So I have the 25, but I don't have the 51. But when you show up, all of a sudden my not self wants to be more competitive than your true self. Right? So it's an amplification experience for the person who has the undefined centers in their design. Again, my intuition and my instinct would be amplified and most certainly conditioned by your existential awareness. For me as an emotional person, I would probably find your speed and the way in which you're able to quickly assimilate information to be remarkable in comparison to my own. I really need to take my time to process things, whereas, again, single definition, 9 centers defined, highly energized splenic, you're always going to have a powerful intuition and be able to communicate what you know and understand in the now moment in a way that would condition other people who don't have that same ability or don't have that same capacity consistently within their design, you know.
When one amplifies the energy, it distorts it, right? Because
Yes.
I've received, like, all the time, people are telling me, like, oh, I know what you're feeling, I know what you're doing, and like they seem to know what is happening, and sometimes it just feels so different from what is actually happening inside of me. Mm-hmm.
Interesting you mentioned that, because the gate of feelings you have is fifth line unconscious, so people project onto you that they understand your feelings.
Okay.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, so the sort of technical description is amplification 200% in the person who doesn't have the center defined, okay, and distort. And then the not self interprets that. Again, I'm just going to use myself as an example. Undefined ego. You walk into the room, my undefined ego is going to amplify your competitive capacity, to be successful on the material plane by 200%. And if I was unaware of that, or if I was totally in my not self shadow, you may see behavioral tendencies appear in the way I interact with you that would come across as like needing to prove myself to you, right? As a not self strategy, or to try and be better or more something than you. Okay. Which is, I think that's like an immediate thing, is like if you walk into a room and you immediately empower and begin to support people, I would say that you're like the most powerful force in the room. You're the one who's there to sort of set that energy and to express and share your empowering supportive energy with other people. And those who have it undefined, again, are just going to be subject to amplification. And their interpretation, like you said, is going to be distorted most of the time. Yeah.
Yes, but that what you say about like amplifying really resonated to me right now, because I've always felt that others do much more than I do. Like my projector friends, they work way much more than I do, and like maybe it's that, like, when I'm with others, it's being amplified, so it's more than what I'm giving. It's a lot of energy.
You may not even actually know. It's, how would you know? It's been who you've been since day one, right?
Yes.
It's difficult to know how we feel to other people
Yes.
when what we have is natural. And I'll say too, with your projector friends who work a lot, the not self strategy of any projector, especially if they're unaware, is to be overzealous. Meaning they take on multiple projects, multiple tasks, multiple commitments, and they're constantly being conditioned to be super slaves, as Ra would say, to work harder even than the generators. Because we're the minority and we amplify the majority, so we end up as amplified super slaves. The number one thing, remember, go back to the simple, if your projector friends are bitter and they're exhausted, that's how you know that they're amplifying in an unhealthy way. If they're successful, if they're successful and they're content and they're not exhausted, they're not burnt out, they're not suffering from exhaustion and adrenal fatigue, then you know, hey, maybe they're actually operating in the context of an invitation correctly.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Thank you a lot.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for opening up your design to share. Okay, so isolating, centering individual in your chart. You have a component, right? So it's an unconscious component, but it's a big component in that it's your design sun, right?
Yeah.
So this is an unconscious radiance. It would equate to about 70% of your energy. Has a lot to do with shock and the arousing. Okay, and the ability to respond to disorder and shock through recognition and adaptation. So in a way, it would be your radiance and your light at an unconscious level to deal with shocking circumstances and shocking events. Okay, and you may find, again, this being part of your profile, the 6-2, that your strategy in dealing with shock is to withdraw. Okay, and the recognition that during shocking, challenging situations, your second line may like to pull back its energy, especially if it interprets a threat potential. To withdraw. Okay. To pull back your energy, to not necessarily be competitive all the time, which might actually be a good point to make here in terms of the conditioning impact. The conditioning impact would be to prove and to be competitive. Because you have that undefined heart center. I guess if we just focus on that first point though, like in the context of shock, to withdraw and pull back your energy, is there anything that kind of comes to mind for you in regards to that?
I mean, it's definitely a theme. the shock and the dramatic experiences. The withdrawal does make sense because that's what I actually want to do. After that, in order to digest it or process it.
Yeah, to process it. Or, see, too, with second lines are not introspective like first lines. Second lines can withdraw and never actually necessarily process it. It's just to pull back from it, just to remove oneself from a shocking situation, not necessarily to go deep into some introspective analysis about what just happened. Okay.
Thanks. That's validating.
So it's not like you're expected to crank on, oh my God, what just happened to me? It's like, okay, that happened. I'm going to withdraw and never think about it ever again.
Yeah.
Don't bring it up. The second line does not want to be bothered, right? Don't bother me.
Yeah. Big time.
I would actually say that I want to bring into perspective too the fact that this is part of your incarnation cross. See if I can isolate this. That so the 51 and the 57 are always going to be binaries to one another in the context of how you process and deal with shock. It's for you, and especially the fact that you have splenic intuition, is to follow your intuition in the now moment for what you end up availing yourself to. So your intuition has a lot to do with how you process shock. You go through a shocking situation, your intuition tells you to withdraw and pull back.
I have had a few times like something a little bit bizarre, which I can't bring up around most people, but this intuition about shocking events that do end up happening.
Like a premonition?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I only have it if it's somebody or, some being, like, without getting into the whole story of it. There were some puppies. I brought forward some puppies. I was nurturing pregnant dog, kind of. It just happened that I was in that kind of a situation. And when they were 2 weeks old, I started to have this very clear feeling, not emotional, just a very clear feeling that they won't get very old. Just whenever I was open, not thinking about things, I would just have this kind of a knowing they're not going to get old. So when the owner was stressing about what are we going to do with these puppies, how are we going to give them away, my feeling would go back to we don't have to worry about it. And after 2 months, 6 of the puppies died from puppy disease.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was like, I knew. And when it happened, when I got the news, because I had just left them the week before, and then I got a phone call that the adult male had come back with something, and I just knew that okay, this is it. This is this is what's gonna happen now. So it was still a shock, like, and it was very sad, and I was like double shocked. Whilst I felt the knowing to be true, I didn't necessarily believe it to actually manifest or to actually happen. Yeah, weird.
Well, weird, but remarkable, and
Yeah.
very easy to understand if you look at how the spleen operates, because remember, the spleen is all about survival. I've said this ad nauseum already, that the splenic awareness is concerned with survival. And there's tribal survival, individual survival, collective survival. And so here's your intuitive individual survival awareness saying, look, something shocking is about to happen. And you knew it before it even happened. You were already attuned to, again, collective being future-oriented, some type of future probability that you had an intuition for about a shocking event that was going to happen. The spleen actually has the ability to measure probabilities that our mind and our emotions have no access to, right? So remember that your mind would go, oh, how could I possibly be certain that that's going to happen, right? Or oh, I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to rock the boat and make the owner of the puppies sad, right? And yet your intuition is like, no, man, don't worry about trying to sell them because the puppies are going to be gone soon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another
Remarkable.
question about that is that this kind of intuition, if I have this knowing or if I have this feeling, it's still within the second mind thing that it needs to be drawn out. Like, could you speak to that?
Yeah, you did a great job in saying that. That's it. It is called, it is drawn, it is seen, and it's seen at an unconscious level, meaning other people may project onto you or see you as someone who's deeply intuitive before you even necessarily come to trust that within your own self, within your own person. Second lines are seen by others, and often second lines discover themselves through the call that they had no idea had anything to do with them, because they're not identified with, especially at an unconscious level, not identified with the quality of that energy. You see, it's have you ever had that kind of interesting feedback where maybe someone has said, hey, wow, you're really intuitive, or you really have an ear for this, or something of that nature?
People say all sorts of fun things. But yeah, definitely, I don't notice it. Like, I grew up in a household with a G mother, and then I had a stepfather who was a self-projector with just the G to the throat, and he saw so much in me that I had no idea was a thing. Like how I danced around his moods and his ways of being, because I was so sensitive to him, and he was such a individual that I respected and honored, and we had our own little language without words, and he would recognize a lot of these things in me that I was like, oh, I didn't know that I did that.
And maybe it's also, I'm so I have the activations now up on the screen here, and you can see you have 5 second line activations. And what do you notice about them all? What's the first thing that's obvious?
The 22 gets me into trouble.
Okay. Other than the troublesome social interactions.
What
Just
do I notice about?
Yeah, what's the commonality between all of those activations in the second line?
They're. I'm not in school, right? They're not all individual.
They're all red.
There's one. Yes, they're all unconscious.
All of these natural abilities that you have that other people see and other people recognize within you. Remember, you're a projector.
Yeah.
So being recognized for your natural abilities are at an unconscious level. You don't identify with them at all. And you never really will. We can study these qualities in our design. Like you can literally go, okay, I'm going to read these gate qualities every day for 100 days. And on the 101st day, it's not going to make any difference to how you actually experience the energy in the real world. You know, so it's like your graceful, intuitive understanding and awareness for how to handle shock and unexpected challenges. It's all going to kind of be like a mystery to you, and in many ways something other people maybe see in you before you recognize it. And remember, bringing it back to simple, if you're invited to share what you intuitively know about a situation, that's your in. And then it's kind of just trusting what you actually say.
Yeah. Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Fifth line. Yeah, and the only other projection element, the fifth line, is Pluto. Remember, the second line and the fifth line both share themes of projection. Yeah.
Well, amazing. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome.
Yeah, I'm set with that.
Plant Mama, is there anything, do you want me to have a look at yours, or are you good? Or do you have any questions?
I'm always so nervous to put my profile up there, but I too have the same line, and I also have it with Neptune. So if you don't mind going a little deeper on that, I would appreciate it.
So are you a 4-6 generator?
Yes.
Okay. Cross of explanation. Do you explain things for a living?
I do. I'm in tech support, so that's all I do all day long.
Yeah. So you support other people with your efficient explanations. Got the 49. And the 4, so the 4 is all about giving away answers. So you're helping to support people by explaining answers clearly and efficiently.
Yep, that is literally what I do all day long.
Is it satisfying? Do you find satisfaction in that? Yeah.
It's funny because I really hate it, but I'm really good at it.
Okay.
So it's one of those things where I'm like, I like that I'm good at it, and it's almost second nature. I don't even have to think or try at it.
Yeah.
But I really don't like doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Isn't human design amazing? Let's see.
I feel like if I could do that just like at any time on my time, it wouldn't be so bad. I think it's the 9 to 5 being structured that I hate the most. That's my problem with it.
Individuals are not meant to be plugged into schedules.
Yeah, it drives me nuts.
Remember how we talked about that with the collective, with the whole focused and repeating patterns thing? Which you do have focus and concentration. So you're like a focused and concentrated individual, but there's no 5, so there's no repeatability. It can be kind of challenging to want to do the same thing over and over again. But you're good at it, so tough luck. Gosh.
I'm like 17 years now. I've managed to make it this far.
I know. Wow. Amazing. So, okay, so let's look at your centering. So you've got the 3410. Okay, so the power to follow one's own convictions. Let's see how this shows up. So the power and the availability is at an unconscious level, right? So the 3410. So this is like a mixed electromagnetic, we call it, where you have a channel that's created due to a relationship between the design and the personality, and you have two gates activated. Well, one gate activated twice at an unconscious level and a conscious level. So the power to behave. You would identify with being sort of this modest role model, right? People may see you as embodying role model like characteristics, someone who walks their talk, right? Someone who has matured through a phase of difficulty and trial and error in the early phase of their life and has over time embodied, again, a behavioral quality that could be seen as something that's exemplary, okay? And like I mentioned before, the 3410 has this ability to empower others to behave in a way that's empowering for the other person, not necessarily just for yourself. So again, when you walk into a room, the way in which you interact with other people can be a very empowering thing, and you may find that people, again, being a 4-6, look to you for your role model qualities, your dependability, your availability, right? The way you handle yourself in interaction with other people. It's sort of backed by this daily drive and an unusual quality to be tremendously powerful, right? The 34 being your daily drive and your Uranus. Yeah, it's like every day you have the power to behave as a role model, and it may come across in a slightly unusual sort of style. It's different than, you're kind of a different type of role model than your parents were, right? So Uranus brings that change, that transformation, unusual qualities. I guess maybe I've said enough. Is there anything you want to sort of reflect on in that?
No, I definitely identify that because I feel like I am kind of the weirdo. But I am very much like, if I am going to believe in something, like, you will see it shining from me. Like, I'm not going to be wishy-washy on that. And I feel like for where I live, that has served me well, which I was reflecting on this week. So yeah, this is helpful for me because I felt like almost it was something that was almost a negative at first when I started learning about it, and now more reflecting and seeing how that's like really served me. And now I'm getting older, that I'm starting to see more people are looking towards me as that, and how I, am presenting myself, or how I've gone through so many different things, that I do know how to navigate things because I've been through it, and being able to share my weirder ways of being able to handle things, has been kind of interesting lately.
Totally. And remember, you're 4323, so that your insightful communication styles are always going to come across as sort of weird. And that actually is a good sign that you're staying true to yourself and your unique perspectives. Remember, the 3410, and you said it, is like standing up for what you believe in. It's literally a design of following one's convictions. Okay, so yeah, the way you explain yourself and how you behave around other individuals may, it can be expressed as weird. The 4323 is freak to genius, but it's also about being unique and being creative and being a standout example that's different from the rest. That's not the same as your friend or your partner, or your parents or your colleagues. It's something very unique and something that ultimately can shine through as a mutative example. Like I said before, you can help to bring radical shifts in efficiency into groups, being a 4323, and it kind of just happens. It's just based on things that happen in that existential moment. But yeah. And so, yeah, again, the 4-6, the 6th line at an unconscious level, being later in life, that's really when the role model qualities and characteristics begin to shine, right? The first 30 is like trial and error. Then you go up on the roof, and then you come off the roof as a unique example of someone who's been there, done that, and can actually be looked to by others as an example, right? Someone who can hold their own tune, kind of like being in a group of, like, have you ever tried to sing with other people in a choir? Okay. It's like being a role model is being able to hold your own tune and speak your unique voice, even when joined with other individuals, you know. So have fun explaining things. I'm sure you're really good at it.
Thank you. Yeah, I heard that the other day. They're like, you're really good at being able to like take complex things and break it down for me into like simple terms. Like, yeah, thank you. I do, yeah. This was just so helpful because I feel like for the first 30 of my life, I was like, it was beat down on me over and over again about, like how bad it was that you were different and weird and doing all these things, like holding convictions on things that everybody else didn't believe in. And now being able to see like why I am like that and that it's a gift. It's not, like something that's a detriment to me. It's just like, it's been so helpful. Thank you guys so much for everything you do in the Discord. I really do appreciate it.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thanks for sharing. I found that helpful.
I ask something, like, how do you say that? Like on what you just explained with the unconscious 6 line. Because my 34 is also unconscious within my Mercury, and it's also 34.6. And I was just thinking like how I always find it difficult to find the right words for stuff, and but then other people always give back to me that I say exactly the right thing.
Yeah, I think you said it just fine. You explained.
Okay, so that correlates with that, right?
So you're talking about your Mercury?
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. So the Mercury. So when you have Mercury, especially in a dormant gate, in any center other than the throat, it can be very difficult for that person to actually be able to communicate what they're here to communicate.
Right.
Because the 34 is not a speaking energy, it's a doing energy, and in your case as a projector, it's dormant. I would almost just say, like, don't crank on that mentally, because in fact, at a conscious personal level, your Mercury, I would say, is a little bit more significant, because the 1334 is the channel that actually makes it to the throat. And you could think of it as, remember that the abstract collective circuitry is a reflective, this is what I remember kind of energy. So it's like what you're here to communicate in a grounded way is what you remember about the past.
Yeah, that's usually how I explain things, like past experiences or things I heard from other people. Experiences.
If you combine it, you can see you might have a powerful way of communicating your past experiences.
Right. Okay.
So the way in which you lead groups based on your experiential wisdom can come across as very empowering.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah. There you go. All right. Yeah, okay, so I'm just going through the chat here. Sharing is fun. Oh, thanks for sharing, Bagel. Wonderful. Rainer. I love that. Yeah, individuals are not meant to be plugged into schedules. It's just not in our quantum. It's not there. Schedules, remember, future planning, that's all collective. You can have a lot of individuality, and or we can say like a fair balance between individuality and collective, which we saw with Plant Mama, right? She's a 52-9, so that focus and concentrated logical capacity and the logical mind with the 63-4, is kind of in between is all of this individual knowing. So individuals can still be connected to schedules, but it'll never feel comfortable. And I think the most important thing to remember is like when you are faced with an important decision as an individual about how you're going to commit your energy over time, if you have a lot of individuality and are lacking logical repeatability, it's to like really consider whether or not you can actually sustain and maintain that commitment. Yeah. Hey, Prana. How you doing? Prana, was there anything you wanted to share about the centering circuit? So the 3410, 2551, maybe something in your own experience, maybe somebody you've known, interesting, kind of shocking ways in which they express their individuality, maybe competitive nature.
Oh, hey guys, can you hear me?
Yep.
Cool. Nothing specific. The centering circuit people that I've always known, they've, for the most part, been quite resistant to hearing about themselves. Right? This kind of strong, the empowerment of their behavior, right? To be told who they are is kind of anathema to kind of that energy and that life force. So they've got to be open to hearing that for sure. But so if you're going around telling these people, who they are and how they're meant to behave, then that usually doesn't go over so well in my experience.
Right.
Yeah. I've always been, just recently I've been kind of, like I was chatting with you earlier, working on these kind of super keynotes for the circuits, and I feel like the individual one really applies here. The sense of integrity, right? That people with individual definition and primarily the centering circuit, that they have this innate sense of integrity that can't be challenged. People without individual definition might feel like they have to work to build up integrity, but for people with this kind of definition, there's something inherent in the integrity there, the need for boundaries. The establishment of your integrity is not something that should or can be questioned. That's all.
Powerful. Thank you. Take notes, folks. It's not up for debate. That's right. Rainer, did you want to share anything? Is there any questions you might have about... I know I'm kind of calling you up. You don't have to if you don't want to. Rainer, Ori.
Thanks. I'm still catching up on everything, actually. So stop waking up. So we're doing the centering circuit. So that's the topic of today?
Yeah, maybe what I can do is get back up here just a sec so you can see it. So yeah, the individual... It's called the individual centering circuit. It's a minor circuit group that's associated with the individual knowing circuit. So like last week when we looked at integration, which you have a component of with the 3457, that integration channels its own thing. And then you have sort of entirely separate from that, in a way, this individual knowing circuit group that has a major and minor component, just like the tribal ego and tribal defense has a major and minor component. In the centering circuit, you have this 3410, 2551 circuit, where it's the identity is flanked by the ego and the sacral availability to empower oneself through the correct behavior and essentially be competitive. And we were saying how it's the one area in the BodyGraph where individuality truly is and can express its unique competitive behavior, which is otherwise primarily dominated by the tribal energy. tribal ego. Yeah, we used Zidane as an example, because he's someone who has the 3410, 2551, so incredibly self-empowered, manifesting generator with a highly competitive spirit, right? Yeah, the power to do, behavior of identity, the ability to cope with shock, and come out of adventures and experiences alive and having been initiated into something. And also, like, this energy can very much so initiate others and kind of push people outside of their comfort zones. Yeah. Do you know if you have any centering in your design? I could always pull it up.
Brilliant, thanks. Really, I think for me, it's just the 34. But, and I haven't consciously thought about this a lot, but with integration and integrity, I guess those are sort of, it is a backbone as well. So my thought is, things that are sort of occupying the space of integration probably have to do with having some level of integrity, whatever that means for that particular individual. That's my only thought right now.
Yeah.
But I don't actually think I have any of the others, because in the ego I just have the 20. I think I just have the 26 in the ego. I don't have the 10, so it's really just the 3457. But again, I know we're not talking integration per se, but that overlap of that integrity keyword is definitely there. And as a 4-1, I'm like super 4-1 integration being, I'm like super integrity. So it's definitely not up for debate, even though my G is inconsistent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got one more thing I wanted to add before I jump out.
Okay.
I was just thinking about one of Ra's comments was that if the ego had a direct connection to the sacral center, that would lead to immortality. But thinking with this connection with the centering circuit, kind of in this roundabout way, what's important to these people is. Oh, you guys still here?
Yep.
Okay. What's important to the centering circuit is legacy, right? The immortality of the things you leave behind, right? That's something that's important, and being competitive in establishing that.
Wonderful. Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. So legacy, and it's again interesting to consider that example I used today with the famous football player Zidane. Like, there's someone with a legacy, right? A legacy in their relative sport, highly competitive, led multiple teams to championship winning titles, both as a player and a coach. Well, I think if anybody has any more questions, feel free. Otherwise, it's we're at 2 hours, so I'm feeling pretty good. I hope you guys learned a lot. Well, I know you did. So thank you again so much for participating, asking such amazing questions. Be sure to post the recording in a few days so you guys can listen to it again, especially those who received some personal insights today. And yeah, we'll catch up next week. Everything's looking on track to meet again next Wednesday for our final circuitry session. And it'll be a bigger one, so I'm going to be talking a lot and trying to go as quick as I can because there's a lot of content to cover because it's a rather complex circuit group with the individual knowing. Yeah, so we'll wrap up with that one. And yeah, we'll see you again next week and hope you all have a fantastic day. And remember, apply what you learn, strategy and authority. Have a great day. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.